Leather carving is part of one of the oldest crafts known to mankind. In this program, we will show you the basic method of carving a Western floral design on leather. I have cemented my leather to some thin cardboard with rubber cement. This will help to prevent the stretch, and I've also help us stamp deeper on this thin leather. Now I'm dampening the leather. I want it damp all the way through, but not soggy. Now we'll set it aside and wait for it to return or begin to return to its natural color. Note that I have traced my pattern from my book onto a piece of tracing material, and now we will begin our tracing. I have, of course, waited until my leather started to return to its natural color. As you can see, we're getting a nice impression. It's not necessary to trace deep, just deep enough so that you can see it. And from time to time, just pick it up and check it. One final check, and it looks like we have everything traced, so now we can proceed to the swivel knife cutting. No matter what kind of a blade you're using, be it a ceramic or a steel blade, it's a good idea every time you pick it up to strop it on a piece of cardboard or leather that's been treated with jeweler's rouge. This will keep it nice and bright and shiny on the sides and make it easy to go through the leather. Please note the proper way to hold the swivel knife. Put your first finger in the saddle, as you see here. Hold it perpendicular from left to right and just tip it forward. And then you can just sink it in and pull it, and you get a nice clean cut. Please note as I cut, I am turning the barrel of the knife with my thumb and second finger. With a little practice, you can make real nice curves. This is how our piece looks after we have finished the swivel knife cutting. The first stamping tool we will use is called the Camouflage. First, we will use the tool to deepen the end of the fern swirl. We'll also use it on the acanthus leaf here. And for this, I will lean it to one side and just get a partial impression, as you see here. We will also use it on the stem that goes up to the flower, and we'll do the same thing. We'll lean it to one side, and as the stem gets wider, we can send it up straight and take the full impression. Next, we will use the Pear Shader. We will use the Pear Shader to give color and contour to our design. Please note that I'm holding the tool firm but not real tight so that I can walk it. As I strike it, it will bounce, and as it bounces, then I can move it in the direction that I want it to go. And here is our piece after we have done the pear shading. The next tool we'll use is the beveler. This is used to give us a three-dimensional effect. To achieve the three-dimensional effect, we put the long edge of the beveler in the cut on the side opposite that we want to stand up. If I want this flower to stand up, I will bevel on this side. So I'll put the long edge in the cut, tap it, and walk it. As you can see, it makes the petal here appear to stand up. Walk it light and tap lightly. This tool's rather sharp, not necessary to hit real hard. Here is our piece after we have done all the beveling. Please note the nice three-dimensional effect we now have on our carving. Next, we will use the veiner tool. Like we did with the camouflage, we will tilt the veiner tool to one side to only get a partial impression. When going around a fern swirl, be sure to maintain your angle, as the angle changes as the curve goes around. This is how we look after we have used the veiner. Now we will use the cedar tool. The cedar is small and sharp, so we need to be careful not to drive all the way through when we strike it. I will use it now to outline the seed pod. After I get it outlined, then I can fill it up. Now we will go back to our swivel knife, and as usual we strop the blade to make sure that it's nice and sharp and polished. And now we will need to hold on a little tighter now to our knife, because the leather has now got bumps and curls and everything in it. So we need to make sure that the swivel knife goes where we want it to go. So be very careful. Now you can look at your pattern to decide what kind of decorative cuts, or you can create your own. In any case, make sure that all of the cuts flow down the stem. This is how we look after we have done the decorative cuts. The last tool we'll use is the backgrounder. The backgrounder is kind of like the Pear Shader, except that it's much smaller and much sharper, and we'll use it to put depth and texture into our background. Notice I'm walking it. I'm holding it slightly above the surface of leather and letting the strength of the mallet strike push it down, then it can bounce back up into my hand, and then we can walk it in the direction that we want it to go. And here's our finished carving, all ready for your favorite dyeing and finishing. I am now taking a dark brown leather dye. I'm going to dye the background. Dyeing the background only. As you can see, with the application of the dark brown leather dye, our pattern now really stands out. I have allowed the EcoFlow leather dye to dry thoroughly, and now I'm going to apply an application of Super Sheen over the entire surface. Now we will allow this to dry overnight. As a final finish, I'm going to use the EcoFlow Highlight Color Stain in the Briar Brown color. Because we have previously put a resist on here with the Super Sheen, you will notice that as I put it on very heavy. But not to worry, because most of it we will wipe off. Make sure we get down in all of the cuts and tool impressions. And we take a paper towel. Notice I folded it up so it's kind of like a pad. Take most of the highlight off onto the paper towel. Then we'll take a damp sponge and very lightly go over the surface, taking off just the top. And we have a nice finish on our project.